Hey everybody, Johnny Cage here, welcoming you back to another game review. This time we're taking a look at One Step from Eden, developed by Thomas Moon Kang and published by Humble Bundle, released March 26, 2020 for the Nintendo Switch. Have you ever lied awake at night wondering why no one has yet to combine the fantastic deck building of games like Slay the Spire with the battle mechanics of the Mega Man Battle Network games? Well, say goodbye to those restless nights, as we have One Step from Eden to satisfy that unusual desire. In this real-time deck-building battler, you'll choose from one of 9 unique characters to command, though you only have the starter character Saffron when you first begin your quest, attempting to traverse through 8 different worlds to complete the game. After starting up a new game and selecting your character, you will also have the choice of selecting different builds if you have them unlocked, as well as taking a look at the starting deck of 4 cards to get a feel for how they play. Every character also has a weapon available, which can be used an unlimited number of times throughout a fight, and will come in handy, especially if your deck of spells isn't exactly giving you what you need. Speaking of those spells, this game offers 249 of them currently, which anyone can add to their deck without restriction. In fact, one of the more fun aspects of the game is that after your first fight, you can give your character a focus or 2, with the option of choosing any group of cards from the 10 available, each of which offers their own playstyle, with a couple of my favorites being the debuff status effects of Misery and the hugely damaging Earth Elemental attacks of the Hearth cards. Or stick with no focus to increase your chances of finding rarer cards in general. Now, before you get too excited about the prospect of so many different combinations, it's important to know that just making this the focus won't necessarily cause those cards to show up as selectable options after each battle. In fact, I had plenty of occasions where I had both my focuses set to one card type and would still not get any from that particular group. I think the design choice for this was so that you couldn't consistently get the same game-winning build and were forced to either choose something from a different group of cards or just pass on adding a card to your deck. Still though, I think I would have enjoyed the game a bit more if at least one of the 3 cards available were always from my focus areas. Also, this might go without saying, but try not to build too large of a deck or one with a high average mana cost, as more cards in your deck will make it tough to find the ones that you really want and will actually increase the amount of time it takes for you to shuffle your deck once it runs out of cards. As you progress through the different worlds, you will encounter 8 different zones across a branching path, allowing you to choose a road of less or more resistance if you would like. You have your standard battle zones, where you must defeat a set number of enemies, providing you with money and experience points afterwards, and should you level up, you will be granted an artifact which will give you a passive bonus throughout the rest of your run. Campsites will provide you with some health and a bunny to give you a small luck boost if you're a bad enough dude to kill it. Treasure zones contain a time chest you will need to take out before it disappears if you want the loot, but also have a couple of crystals to take out as you please for a small bit of coin. Other battle zones include distress calls, which are scripted scenarios with 1 or 2 hostages you have to try and save if at all possible, and hazards, which are similar to normal battles, but as the name implies, include some sort of obstacle to make combat more chaotic. But in exchange for completing these, you will be granted upgraded spells to pick from instead of the 3 basic cards. There are also shops that you can come across. Here you can buy spells, artifacts, or purchase other consumable items like the previously mentioned upgrading of cards or removing cards from your deck, with upgrading your cards allowing for a few different ways that you can shape the card best to fit your deck build at the time. Lastly, you have mini-bosses, which are stronger than usual fights that will grant you 1 of 2 artifacts after completion, and regular boss zones which end each world and will pit you against another playable character from the game. These fights are a real step up in challenge, but what makes them particularly interesting is that if you defeat them, you can choose to kill them off for both a higher rarity spell and artifact as a reward. Or you can show mercy and let them live, which grants you a health boost and can lead to that character randomly showing up at later points to provide some assistance. And you won't be the only one with this choice, as if the boss defeats you, they can also choose to finish you off or show mercy. These choices will also determine how the ending of the game will play out should you get there. It is also by defeating these bosses that you will unlock them for future playthroughs, though you will need to get to at least World 4 before you will start the unlocking process, and the world you are currently in, be it fire, forest, ice, or others, will determine the character that you will end up fighting at the end, with 2 possibilities for each world. Regardless of how your game comes to an end, you will get a breakdown of the run, where your personal profile will gain some experience based on how well you did, as well as any new spells, artifacts, or characters you might have unlocked along the way. One feature you don't see in most video game deck builders present here is a 2-player mode, in the form of both co-op and PvP. A welcome addition for sure, though in the co-op mode both players will have to play as the same character and you share a deck, with one player having control of the cards activated with the A button and the other activating cards in the B button slot, making for a somewhat frustrating experience overall. The controls are well put together for use with a controller. You move about the battlefield with either the D-pad or the analog stick. A and B will execute the 2 spells that you have available, with ZR using the character's weapon and ZL forcing a deck shuffle if need be. But I found myself just sticking to what I pulled, as it can take a couple seconds to shuffle your deck, just to hope you get something better. Visually, the game goes for a pixelated look with a good amount of frames of animation for the main cast of characters, but everything else is a bit lacking in design. Though with how frantic the gameplay can be, it's not exactly something you're going to be paying much attention to. The audio is almost entirely made up of electronic upbeat melodies, which are fitting for the action on screen, but definitely nothing special, and you wouldn't be missing out if you supplied your own soundtrack with this one. You can pick up One Step from Eden on the Nintendo Switch for $20 American with a file size of 789 megabytes. I'm a big fan of deck building games, whether they are the physical variety like Magic the Gathering or the previously mentioned digital masterpiece Slay the Spire, but man did I go through a roller coaster of emotion in determining how I felt about this game. My biggest issue with it by far is how the cards in your hand are presented. You do have them displayed in the bottom left along with their mana costs, as well as over your character's head to better keep an eye on what's happening on the playfield, but at a glance I usually have no idea what cards I am playing. I think a better design choice would have been to slide the battlefield up on the screen, removing the unnecessary background towards the top, and allowing for the 2 cards in your hand to be displayed fully at the bottom as they are when you select them to add to your deck. The speed of the battles is also a bit too quick for trying to play cards strategically, and while this is something that you can adjust to with repeated plays, a toggle to bring down the speed in the options menu would have been a nice touch. No matter how you look at it, this game does have a pretty steep learning curve that I can certainly see turning some people off of it. But when everything comes together with the deck building and flow of the battle, this can be a very satisfying experience. And with no restrictions on the cards that can be in your deck, you do have a ton of variety for different builds, even though you can't make them as precise as I would like. I'm going to go ahead and give One Step from Eden 7 steps towards Eden out of 10. This is a fantastic offering from a single-person development team, and takes chances with being a pretty original deck-building concept, making it worth its price if you're big into the deck-building genre. For those that only dabble in this style of gameplay, there are some missteps that you really can't ignore, but if the idea of this seems fun to you, I can recommend this as a solid pickup when it's on sale. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you would like to stay posted on new game reviews as I upload them, please click the subscribe button, as well as checking out the link in the description below for my Twitch channel where I stream most days. I'll talk to you all later on.